This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, I'm going to have Shabbos Shabosai as we prepare for Parshas Vayikra and for Rosh Chodesh Nissan and for Yom Tov of Pesach, Habalenu Tova. So the psukim that discuss the attitude of Paroi toward Moshe Rabbeinu take a very surprising twist, and that is by the Makkah of Barad. Barad was which Makkah? Makkah number 7. The Torah says that Paro starts to get a little bit humble. Finally, for the first time, the Barad knocked the living daylights out of Paro. Vayishlach Paro vayikol Moshe l'ad vayimar aleim chatasi apam. Oh, he's a big tzaddik now. He says, now I've sinned. Hashem at tzaddik v'ani v'harashayim. For the first time, Paro is contrite. He says, Vidui, Hashem HaTzadik, we're the Rishayim. So it would seem like, the first 6 makkahs, they bam, bam, smack, and finally Paro relents after the 7th makkah. But very strange, there comes the makkah of Arba, and Paro has a change of heart. Look in number 2, by the makkah of Arba. Loichein, l'chuna agvam vivdus Hashem. Let the men go. Ki oisa atem mevakshim. Vayigaresh oisa me'es pnei Paroi. And he chases them out. Wait a second, what happened? After the makkah of Barad, Paro becomes contrite. And all of a sudden, by the makkah of Arba, Paro is emboldened. And then by the makkah of Choshech, he becomes even a bigger mechutzaf. Vayomer lei Paro, leich me'oloi. Now this time he doesn't just chase them out. Hishomer lecha. Al toisef rois panai, I don't want to see your face. Kibiyim roischa panai tamos. What's going on to Paro? You would think the makkos are softening Paro, as we see by Makkah's Barad. And now, Arba just makes him more crazy. And Choshech just makes him more insane. He says, Kibiyim roischa panai tamos. What's the pshat? What's happening to Paro? What's going on to Paro? Why is he becoming more in opposition to Moshe Rabbeinu? Look at number 4. Look at number 4. Vayikra Moshe l'chol ziknei Yisrael. Moshe called out to all the elders. Vayomer aleim, mishchu ukechu lachem tzoin lemishbachosechem v'shachatu ha'pasach. The pasuk says, draw forth and take for yourselves sheep for your families and shech the Korban Pesach. Says the Medrash, davar acher, mishchu ukechu lachem tzoin. This is a fulfillment of the pasuk. All those who worship idols should be ashamed. When Hashem said to Moshe to shech the Pesach, Amar loi, Moshe, Rivayin Olam, Hadavar zeh hechani yachal asis. We can't shech the Korban Pesach. And don't you know that the sheep is the god of the Egyptians? Shenemar, he nizvach as tayavas mitzrayim leineim v'layis galunu. It's impossible for us to shech the sheep as a Korban Pesach. They will kill us. Amar lei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, chayecha, I take an oath. Ein Yisrael yotzin mikan ad sheyishchatu es Elihei Mitzrayim leineim. They ain't going out until they slaughter the god of the Egyptians before their eyes. I want to show them that their God is worthless. We find the same thing they did. That night God smote the firstborn. The Mitzrim saw their firstborn, Harugim. Beloheyan shchutin, beloheyu chayil maslis klum. U'mitzrayim mekabrim es asher hika Hashem mehem kol b'char, u'veloheyam asa Hashem shvatim, harei yevoishu kolay defesa. So in other words, the words mishchu u'kechu lachem tzayin means, don't serve idols. What idol? The idol of the sheep. In fact, Rashi brings down in Parshas Bay, not on the pasuk, but 6 psukim earlier, and it comes from the Mechalta. On the words Mishchu u'kechu lachem tzayin, says Rashi, Shahayu shtufim ba'avodas kochavim. Right? Remember we saw on Wednesday that the Rambam said not only were the ancient civilizations serving idols, but the Jewish people themselves were steeped in idolatry. And look at Rashi, they were shtufim avodas kacham. Not some Jews sometimes served idols. They're completely immersed in it. Amar lahem mishchu u'kachu lachem. Mishchu yedechem me'avodas kachavim u'kachu lachem tzayin shel mitzvah. And in fact, if we look in the Sefer HaAkedah, it's very hard to find anything in the Sefer HaAkedah on any Indian. He has dozens and dozens of pages. So we have over here a synopsis of the Akedah Yitzchak from the Sefer Hagoyis with Parsha Torah, from the Nachshoni. He says the whole Inyan of Korban Pesach was to counteract the worship of Avodah Zarah. First of all, why were you not allowed to cook the Korban Pesach? Because when you cook something, you cover it, you cover the pot. So it's not apparent, it won't be apparent to the Mitzrim that what you're doing to the Avodah Zarah. When you barbecue is al ha'esh, is begoloi. And that's why they had to eat every morsel of meat. The Mitzrim would come and they were like, oh, you're eating our God? Not only were the Jews eating, sometimes, but if, we have a treat at home, so there's not always enough to go around. So, okay, I'll eat it. And then one of my sons, he likes to lick the chops, So, I don't have any meat left. But he has plenty of meat. He knows how to clean off the bone, yeah? So if you clean off, so the Korban Pesach, you could not leave over a morsel of food. You had to lick the bones. So the Mitzrim coming by, they see the Klal Yisrael like cleaning off the bones, every last ounce of meat. And anything that was left over, what do you have to do? You have to burn it in fire. And you have to put it in a way you couldn't hide the limbs. Roishai, al kirbai, al chrav. It has to be open and apparent in the most embarrassing, demeaning way to Avodah Zarah of the Mitzrayim. Here, let's read it quickly. Look at number 7 on the second line. This is from the Akedah Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak Arama. By the way, you can even get it in English. A monk wrote a translation of the Akedah Yitzchak. He says, look on the second line, Hayam Muforsam Ben Hamonehem. It was widespread. If you touch even the slightest amount of the sheep or the goats, it's like touching the pupil of their God's eye. It was like an instant death sentence. Now the Mitzrim had to see that all of a sudden everything has turned on its head. Here you have these filthy Jews who are our servants for hundreds of years, who made the pyramids, who we beat, who we tortured, right? Chazal say that in Mitzrayim, they made the Jews work all day long. There was no respite, there was no rest, there was no vacation. And then finally the Jew comes home at night, he's beaten, and he's tortured, he's out of breath, he hasn't eaten the whole day. And the Mitzrayim would say, we're not finished now. We have parties at night. So the Jew would say, what do you want from us? He said, we need light. So the Jew would say, what do you want from us? We need you to stand in the middle of the party. We're going to balance a candle on your head. And you're going to light our party up the whole night. So here you have the Jew. He hasn't sat the whole day. He hasn't eaten the whole day. He's starving. He's collapsing. And he has to stand there like a statue all night long, balancing the candle on the head, while the Mitzrim would eat like chazerim. So here the Jew is broken, he could barely keep his eyes open, and he's starving, and all he could do is smell the food of the Mitzrim. And then when the party was over, the next day of work. It was the next day of work. So here, all these Jews who they've been torturing for so many centuries, now they're slaughtering their God. This despicable nation, this despicable nation are now raising their hands against their flock. Asher bachul lahem le'elohim yikach ishseo. Each man took his sheep. Uvekari mitasai yaser oisel le'neim. And then they would tie the sheep to the boards, to the poles. V'yanichu b'mishmar shloshes yamim. And they would attach it to the bed for 3 days. Ve'ein le'el yadei lahatzel. Yom ha'yaveh, the day would come v'shachar le'silfanim. And then he says, 2 lines down. Now while the sun was shining, they were all slaughtering their gods. And not only that, they didn't hide it. They took the blood and they put it on every doorpost. Every doorpost in Mitzrayim was now smeared with the blood of the Egyptian gods. You could only eat it roasted, not cooked in water, completely revealed, and you couldn't cut it up. You had to roast the Korban Pesach whole. There was no hiding, this was a sheep. If you would cut up the animal, so then who knows what, maybe it's a goat, maybe it's a cow. No, it had in its full form. Roishai, al krav, v'al kirbai. They had to eat kol basarai. V'atzmoisav yigarim ad b'lihishim min abasim uma ad ora boiker, and whatever's left over they had to burn. And even the dogs had to keep quiet. Hashem even silenced. Usually when there's trouble in the city, all the dogs are making a ruckus. Hashem kept the dogs quiet. Okay? So the whole purpose of Korban Pesach was to counteract the Avodah Zarah of Mitzrayim. By the way, if you look in the Navi Yecheskel, Parak Chav, Pasuk Vav, this week's Haftarah, this is not from this week's Haftarah. This week's Haftarah is from Yecheskel, though. Parsha Chachodesh is from Yecheskel. But in Navi Yecheskel says, God said, I swore to them to take them out of Mitzrayim, but, look in Pasuk Zayin, I told those Jews, Ish shikutse einav hashlichu uvigilule Mitzrayim al titamo. So here we have, it's an open pasuk. The Jewish people in Mitzrayim were complete idolaters. This is not figurative. They were right up there. They were some of the chief servers of Avodah Zarah, and that's why we know what is Shabbos Hagadol? Why is Shabbos Hagadol called Shabbos Hagadol? It was a big miracle. What was the big miracle? Well, we know we left Mitzrayim on a Thursday. On a Thursday. And 4 days earlier, we were commanded to shecht the Korban Pesach. Right? The Torah writes, Shabbos Shalofnei Pesach. 4 days earlier, we were commanded to prepare the Korban Pesach, to attach it to the posts of the bed. Shabbos Shalofnei Pesach Koronos to Shabbos Hagadol. V'hatam, the reason is, the Fishanasa by Nes Gadol. A big miracle happened. She Pesach Mitzrayim Mikchoy Ba'asar. The Pesach Mitzrayim was taken on the 10th. Kedachsev Ba'asar L'Chodesh Hazeh V'yikol Lahem Sel B'Eisav Sel Abayis. Pesach Sheyatzu Yisom Yitzayim Hoya B'Yom Hey. Pesach that year was on a Thursday. Kedisa B'Seder Olam. And that's why the Gemara says in Shabbos Hakol Moedim Shabbos Nitna Torah. So the only problem is if we left Mitzrayim on a Thursday and everyone agrees the Torah is given on Shabbos, then Shavuos was on day 51, not day 50. That's a big problem, right?
That's a whole other discussion.
That's what Moshe did. He delayed one extra day.
Yeah, that's a Magen Avram on Shavuos. But so it comes out the 10th of the day was Shabbos. They tied it to the doorpost. The Mitzrayim asked, what are you doing? And they said, we're just taking your God to shecht it in a few days. So I heard a very interesting pshat. I heard on a tape from Rabbi Eitan Feiner. Everybody wants to know the Rasha. What do we do to the Rasha? We knock out his teeth. Why do we knock out his teeth?
There's a gematria that we learned with Shina and Russia. I just forgot what it is. I have it on my papers.
Why do we knock out his teeth? Why don't we knock out his eye, his ear, his knee? You know what the answer is? Look at the Torah. The Torah says, when the Mitzrayim find out that we were shechting the Korban Pesach, what did we do? What did the Mitzrayim do? They were gritting their teeth. In other words, they were so angry, but they couldn't respond. They couldn't say anything. So we tell the Rasha, you Rasha, you don't like our Avodah. You should know Rasha. If you would have been in Mitzrayim, you would have been like the Mitzrayim who hayashen of Kehos. You've been gritting your teeth. In other words, it's an expression. The only other people we find hayashenem Kehos are the Mitzrayim and Mitzrayim when we were shechting the Korban Pesach and they couldn't bear it. So we tell the Rasha, You're kaifer be'ikr. You're lefi shahoitzias atzri min haklal. You're joining the mitzvim shahayushen of chaos. Okay. Now, Rabbi Glatstein, I want you to look at the Toras Chaim, Masechta Chulin, Daf Tzadi Aleph, and he asks a question on this medrash brought down by the Torah. That he says when the Mitzrim saw that we were tying the sheep to the door, to the bedpost, they were gritting their teeth. Asks the Toras Chaim, who's a Kadmon of Chaim Shor, he asks, wait a second, for the last 210 years, what were the Jewish people doing in Mitzrayim? What was their profession? They were shepherds. What do you do? What is a shepherd? Why would you shepherd sheep? It's not just for wool and milk. If you wanted wool and milk, you could get cows. You're not a shepherd of sheep to produce wool. You know why you're a shepherd of sheep? To eat sheep, lamb chops. That's why you're a shepherd of sheep. So the last 210 years, the Jewish people were eating lamb chops, yeah?
Not the whole thing 210? You say the last 210. Huh?
So the last 210 years, they're eating sheep. So why all of a sudden now the Mitzrim are having a cow? No pun intended. That the Jewish people are eating sheep. That's what they've been eating for the last 210 years. So now we get one more clue. And that is, and this is something we saw in the Rambam in the Morning of Lichim on Wednesday, that it's not only that the Mitzrim believed that the sheep was their God, but the sheep was symbolic of their God in heaven. Who is their God in heaven? The Mazel of Tleh. Mazel Tleh is Arius. Arius is the Mazel of the Mitzrim. By the way, it's also the chief Mazel. Of all the 12 Mazalos, it's the head Mazel. And the Egyptians believed that Mazel in heaven gave some kind of kayach to the sheep. So therefore, says the Toras Chaim, for the last 210 years when the Jews were eating lamb chops, good, eskazin to hate, they said. You know, it's not our style, but now that they're trying to shech the sheep as a kavana, to be mavatel their God, so that's what really got to them. Okay, so the Toras Chaim says, "V'agavorcha yeshadak to b'medrash zeh lama zeh haya oz shineim keos tvim mishar kol hayamim atu lo yachli yisrael kol yimei hayosim mitzrayim sham kvasim v'seizim halai habrit tzayin avaluhu." They had a lot of sheep. V'lav la'achila lama haya royet tzayin chinam. They weren't shepherds for nothing. V'doichik lama b'shul chala v'giza. It wasn't just for milk and the shearings. Why? Even if it was, that's also a genai for them. Says the Toras Chaim, until now the Mitzrayim didn't care. They had nothing to do with their God in heaven. Because that wasn't their kavanah. B'mitzvahs Hashem Aleinu, v'yadua ki tam mitzvah shchitas Pesach chaya k'dei levatel sivlois Mitzrayim. We know they shechted the korban in order to be mevatel avodas zara Mitzrayim, who worshipped Mazel Tleh, the head of the Mazalos. Svurim hayu shein chazam manig l'malahim enu. Right, the Mitzrim thought that, you know, under the Mazel Tleh, you have 12 Mazalos. Under the Mazalos, you have the Marachas Hashemayim, the 70 Marachas Hashemayim. So they thought Mazel Tleh, he's the top of the top. He's the highest of the high. He is where it's at. Nothing's higher than him. By the way, that's what we once spoke out from the Shalach HaKadosh in Halal Haggadah. What do we say? Haidu Lashem ki toiv ki li olam chazdai. Haidu le'loikei oleikim ki olam chazdai. Haidu la'adoinei hu adoinim ki olam chazdai. That in heaven there are adoinim, there are malachim, but Adon Shem is supreme above everybody. He's Haidu Lashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Paroi believed in his tleh. He didn't believe in the Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu's Mata, he had the Yud Kei Vav Kei. He always, wherever Moshe Rabbeinu came to Paroi, he was always waving that Mata in Paroi's nose. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Paroi says, yeah, Elokim Yanesh Shloim Paroi. Paroi knew the Shem Elokim from Yosef. Paroi said, Etzba Elokim he. But he didn't believe in the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So therefore, says the Toras Chaim, the purpose of the Korban Pesach was not only to be mevatel the avodah zara of the tleh, but also the mazel tleh. By the way, now the Shalach HaKadosh tells us one more clue. Look at number 11. Soidois Korban Pesach The secret of the Korban Pesach, Lefi Pashtan, Hu laharois ki gadol Hashem mikol alekim, v'ashamayim imav ve'al aretz mitachas einoid, v'lo yisparach ha'koyach v'hayecholes, af shecholak mikvoder l'tzva ma'ala. Even though God gave some honor to some of the hosts of heaven, v'sam oisam l'shoitrim ba'aretz, and He did make them ministers, ish lefi pekudasai, each man according to his job. Still, even though God gives them kayach, He could take it away at will. Kihine sar Mitzrayim hu merkeves hamishna. The angel of Mitzrayim is second in command. Kolaymar darach mashal sheni lemarkava. The sar of Mitzrayim is the second to most powerful being in the entire heavens, second only to God. And therefore, Alkein hu sar harishon mishivim sarim. He's the first sar of the 70 ministers. Shelamala. You know what you call him? The sar of Mitzrayim, Mazel Tleh, has another name. He's called the Bechar. The Mazel of Mitzrayim is called the Bechar. V'hu ha-Bechar. Bechar means greatness, like the pasuk says. Af ani Bechar etnehu. U'kamoy sheha-Bechar hu harishon l'noyladim acharav. And since the Bechar is the first to those who are born after him, Kain Sar Shel Mitzrayim L'Sar Ma'aba Macharav. All the constellations of heaven are secondary to Mitzrayim. The Tachas Ha'ayin Sarim, under the 70 Sarim, Him Ma'arachas Hashmai Mitzvayim. Al Kain Mazel Tleh. Therefore, the Mazel of Tleh Shua Rishon Shel Mazalos is the first of the Mazalos. V'hu Ha-Bechar V'Harishon Hu B'Chalkai. The Mitzrim worship the sheep as a way of worshipping this great Mazel. And what month of the year does the greatest Mazel rule? Nissan. By the way, Nissan is in what Chodesh? Which season? Chodesh Ha'aviv. What's Aviv? Av Yud Beis. The word Aviv is the head of the 12. The head of the 12. Now, we know there are 12 months a year. If you take Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, how many permutations are there of Yud Kei Vav Kei?
24. 4, so 1 times 2 times.
Hay is duplicated.
24.
Hay is duplicated.
You could put the Yud first, and 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. What? 12. There are 12 permutations of Yud Kei Vav Kei. There are 12 permutations of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Try it out.
Yeah, but the hay and hay is same.
Every month is different.
12. Every month has, now, what's 26 times 12?
312. 212. Now?
What?
312.
312.
Yeah.
312.
52, 312. What's
52. Let's take a vote. 312.
312.
mathematician.
What's the gematria of Chodesh?
Probably 312.
Ches, Daled, Shin. 312. You know why a Chodesh is called a Chodesh? 312. Because a Chodesh has in it all 12 permutations of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So every month has a different permutation of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Some months it's backward. Let's say Adar is Yud Kei Vav Kei backward. V'chol zeh einenu shoyveli. It's Hey, Vav, Hey, Yud. Adar is the last month of the year. So Adar is Yud Kei Vav Kei backward. Nissan is the first month of the year. So Nissan is Yud Kei Vav Kei forward. Not v'chol zeh einenu shoyveli. Yismechu Hashamayim v'sagel ha'aretz. Every month has a different pasuk which represents its permutation of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And in fact, many Sidurim, the Siddur al-Rizal tells you that when you say Baruch Atah Hashem in the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, you should be mechavein each month for a different permutation of Yud Kei Vav Kei. In some of the new Art Scroll Sidurim, they even give it to you. Okay? But What does this have to do with anything?
Which of the fermentations apply?
What?
How do they know that which of
The Arizal is Megala. Which
you have a pasuk for each one?
For a pasuk for each one, yeah.
Different permutations.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why Chodesh. So Nissan is Chodesh Ha'aviv, Av Yud Beis. 12 times 26 is 312, and that's why it's called Chodesh. You wanted some gematria, so this is just extra, yeah.
Why all the permutation? Why not straight Yud Kevavke every month? But why not?
The Rebbeinu Shem, the way we see him, is manifest differently. Rebbeinu Shem doesn't change, but the way he's manifest to the world. For example, at the end of the year in Adar, Rebbeinu Shem is couched in Teva. That's why it looks like, but Nissan is open miracles, Yismachu HaShamayim B'Sogel Haaretz.
Rabbi, does the Arizal show how each of the mazolos are related to the pasuk? In other words, you know the Tla from Mitzrayim because it's Nissan, but you have Pisces and all the others.
I'm not sure. I don't know if the Arizal does, but many Sfarim do. The Bnei Yissaschar explains how it's related to the month. For example, Tishrei is scales, Elul is Basula. It's the beginning of it's a new opportunity, a new start. So you have the twins is Sivan, is Shavuos. You have two Chavrusas, right? You have the Luminat Torah. Anyway, all the months have different mazols. But the month of Nisan, the mazal is Tle. So what does Rebbeinu Shem say to Klal Yisrael? HaChodesh Hazeh, this month that the Mitzrim thought was theirs. Lachem, I'm giving it to you. In other words, the month that the Mitzrim feel that they have hope, that they are well represented in the heavens, that they have koyach, they have no koyach. You bring the Korban Pesach, you show them how their Avodah Zarah is worthless, and you show them how their mazel is worthless. HaChodesh Hazeh, this month, Lachem, I'm giving it to you. Rishon hu Lachem. They think, listen carefully, the Mitzrim think Nisan is the month of the Tleh. I'm telling you, the month of Nisan is Yismachu HaShamayim V'Sogel Haaretz. It's the month of open Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's the month of superseding the Mazel of Tla. Comes the Ramban, and the Ramban says, what's the reason for the Korban Pesach? Ish se leveis avos tam ha-mitzvah hazois ki bavur ki mazel Tla b'chodesh Nisan. The mazel of Tle is the mazel of Nisan b'koichai hagadol. Ki hu mazel hatzoimeach. The mazel of Tle is the mazel of growth. So what does Hashem say? L'kach tziva lishchoi Tle. Hashem says, slaughter the mazel of Tle, v'lechol oisai, and eat it. Lo hidiyah, to show shaloi b'koich mazel Tle yotzanu misham. You're not going out through the mazel of Tle, ela b'gzeras elyon, you're going out through God. Says Ramban, V'yaldas Rabbi Seinu, but Chazal say a little bit differently. The Mitzrayim worship the Tle, so therefore what we're showing is that we're lowering their gods in their eyes, we're lowering their mazel and shamayim, and this is the meaning of Mishchu Ukuchu Lachem Tzayin.
Didn't we have a shiur once before when we started today's shiur? And why did Paro, we have to reset that we were showing that he became... Let's see.
The Chazal say, let's see, the Chazal say like this. Here's my question. Wednesday we learned about Parshas Vayikra. Parshas Vayikra we learned about Karbanos. And we brought down the opinion of the Mar Nevuchim, that the reason for Karbanos were to do what? To be mevatel, to counteract the false ideology and the nonsensical beliefs of the nations of the world who worshipped sheep, who worshipped goats, who worshipped cows. And we spoke out, the Ramban had 6 questions on the Ramban. He says, that's the whole purpose of Karbanos, to counteract the nonsensical beliefs of the nations of the world. Why would Karbanos be brought for that purpose? You're lowering the Mizbeach, you're defiling the Mizbeach, that the whole purpose of the Mizbeach is just to counteract the beliefs of the nations of the world? But I don't understand something. The Ramban himself says that's the reason for the Korban Pesach. So all those questions that the Ramban had on the Rambam on Wednesday, the Ramban himself says that what the Rambam said was the reason for all Karbanos, which the Ramban rejected. The Ramban is saying that's the reason for the Korban Pesach. It's a steer on the Ramban. The Ramban had 6 questions on the Rambam. Remember, the Ramban said you're defiling the Mizbeach, and the Ramban said, well, Noach brought Karbanos before there were any Avodah Zarah, and Hevel brought Karbanos before there were any Avodah Zarah. And the Ramban asked that by bringing their God to Hashem, you're just enhancing the prestige of their gods. And the Ramban said even they would bring such Karbanos to God. So why does the Ramban accept what the Ramban rejected about the Ramban is offering as explanation for Korban Pesach? No, it's like it's an open steer on the Ramban. Everything we learned on Wednesday, everything we learned from the Ramban that the Ramban did not like, he says by Korban Pesach. You know, had the Ramban himself not said it, and it would just be Chazal and the Mechilta and Rashi and the Shmois Rabbah, okay, it's Halbatzara. But here the Ramban is saying exactly what he didn't like about the Rambam regarding Korban Pesach.
That was the exception, no?
He did like Bibi, a turnaround. Changes his mind, one day.
No, you have a question? It's a Pella Atzuma on the Ramban. So on the one hand you could say, well, the Korban Pesach is a little bit better. Because remember, one of the questions of the Ramban was, if you're trying to counteract Avodah Zarah, the nations of the world, don't bring it on the Mizbeach. Have a barbecue and eat it. If you want to show how nonsensical the Avodah Zarah is, don't offer it to God, eat it. So at least by Korban Pesach, you're eating it. It's not a Korban Oila, it's not a Korban Chatas, it doesn't just go to the Kohanim, it's a Korban Shlomim, it goes to the Bailam. So that aspect of the Ramban's problem with the Rambam is answered by the Korban Pesach, but that's only one of the Ramban's questions on the Rambam. Maybe you'll say that the Ramban is not saying that it's only to counteract the fact that the nations of the world worshipped these animals of Avodah Zarah. That would be a disgrace to the Mizbeach, to bring what the nations of the world consider Avodah Zarah on the Mizbeach. That the Ramban would say that's a disgrace. But the Ramban here is saying a little bit more. He's saying that the sheep of Mitzrayim represented Mazel Tleh. Mazel Tleh is a Mazel in Shamayim. It's not that we deny there's no such thing as Mazel Tleh. We believe there's something called Mazalos, and the Mazel of Nissan is Mazel Tleh. And it is the Bechar of all the Mazalos, and it is the most powerful of all the Mazalos. We just believe that Rebbeinu Shem overrides it. Rebbeinu Shem created it, and Rebbeinu Shem controls it. So maybe to shecht a sheep on Pesach, Nissan time, to counteract Mazel Tleh, apparently even the Ramban feels that is permitted, that's okay. Because maybe that's not so nonsensical, that's not so outlandish. Maybe that's something that every person needs to overcome. And that the Ramban allows. That not only does he allow, he endorses that. In other words, the Ramban didn't like the fact that the Rambam said every crazy belief of the nations of the world we reject through Karbanos. But one of those crazy beliefs, apparently the Ramban does accept. Or maybe it's not a stira, because the Ramban had a problem saying every single Korban brought, the underlying reason of all Karbanos is to counteract Avodah Zarah. But now the Ramban is just giving a reason for one specific type of Korban at one time a year that's brought a certain way. So to give a reason for a detail of Karbanos to counteract Avodah Zarah, that the Ramban doesn't have a problem with. But to explain that the reason of the Rambam as an overarching reason for all Karbanos, that the Ramban is troubled with. Okay, so now let's come back to Parai. Rabbi Yosef's been exercising great self-control, right? And let's see what the Aruch HaShulchan says. Aruch HaShulchan says the following. We know the Makkos lasted how long? The Makkos lasted a year, 12 months. As Paro is getting smattered to smithereens, he's being humbled, he's being subdued. That's why the Makkah of Barad is what? Paro says, Hashem HaTzadik, Ani V'ami HaRashayim, Etzva Elohimhi. But as the year is progressing, and he's getting closer and closer to his time of the year, to his kayach, to his mazel, to the mazel of Tleh, Paro gets a little bit emboldened. Paro is getting a little strong. Yeah, God, whoa, I have to watch out. He's going to destroy me. But as the months are coming, and Teves is coming. Teves was which Makkah? Yeah, well, Teves, it sounded like Adar was Makkah's Choshech, and Shvat was Makkah's Arbe, and Teves was Makkah's Barad. So as Paro is still in the middle of the winter, the Egyptian winter, and his sheep is far away in the heavens, he can't even hear the sheep baying, he's so far away. So Paro says, yeah, Hashem HaTzadik, v'ani v'ami harashayim. But as the month of Nissan is approaching, Paro starts to get his chutzpah back. Paro starts to get his confidence back. Says Aruch HaShulchan.
Start from Nissan coming?
What?
From Nissan to Makkah?
Yeah.
So
Says
the 10th month.
What?
Take us the 10th month.
Yeah, but Teves, Shvat, Adar. In other words, it's coming toward Nissan. So says Aruch HaShulchan, V'lama nivchar chodesh hazeh. What's special about Nissan that was chosen to be the first month of the year? Shehamitzrim avdu l'tleh. The Mitzrim worship the sheep shu roish hamazolos be'afudas ha'agula, in the composition of the circle of the year. U'mazel tleh mishamish b'chodesh Nissan. U'paroi samach al koicha u'mazoloi. Paro was relying heavily on his mazel. U'lekach af ki b'makas barad nishbar libay hazayna. Even though Paro's heart was broken through makas barad, ad sha'amar Hashem HaTzadik v'ani v'ami harasham mikamaka machar kach b'makas arbe heirim roish. He lifted up his head. K'dechsiv v'yigoresh oisam. And by makas choshech, he had tremendous chutzpah. He said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Al toisef rois panai. Why? Karvu yimei Nisan. The days of Nisan were approaching. Ubatach hamazaloi. He trusts his Moshe b'chodesh hazeh. So that's what Hashem says to Moshe. HaChodesh hazeh lachem. This month that Paro was taken for himself, right? This month is for you. This month that Paro's been waiting for, this is a month to demonstrate that what? Haidul Hashem ki tov kilim chesed, that the Yud Kei Vav Kei supersedes and overrides all the koichos, all the mazalos, all the forces of Shamayim. And the month that all the nations of the world hope for, the Rebbeinu Shem gave that month as a gift for Klal Yisrael. Rishon hu lachem l'chotchei Hashana. I just want to tell you one thing, or I want to remind you something that we learned this year by Parshas Boy. It's kedai to review very quickly. And that is, we learned from the Psikta that the 10 Makos corresponded to what?
10 Mamoros.
Asara Mamoros Shenivra Ha'olam. That the 10 statements with which Hashem created the world correspond to the 10 Makos. And one of the ways we learned how they correspond is that they correspond backward. Which means, the first statement with which Hashem created the world was what? Bereshis bara Elokim. The Mitzrim denied Bereshis bara Elokim. So Hashem demonstrated the force of it with Makas B'chayros. And you don't believe in Reshis? I'll show you my control over Reshis. So the first Rashi in Chumash says that how should the Torah begin? Really, the Torah should begin. Guess what? The second time when God recreated the world through Makas B'chayros, what's the introduction to Makas B'chayros? So this is a recreation of the world, and God is recreating it by changing time. Remember? Bereshis bara Elokim, what was the first creation? Creation of time. God is recreating time. It doesn't begin anymore from Tishrei. Now what the Goyim think is power for them, God is recreating time. He's giving time to us. Hashem should grant us all a wonderful new year. Simchas Tanachas for all Klal Yisrael.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.